Shalom, shalom, Jerusalem. Peace be to you.
Hi, I'm Neil Snyder. Thanks for joining me for another Snyder Talk video commentary. Today I want to talk about the verses in the book of Deuteronomy that contain the phrase, the name of Yahweh, but I only want to talk about two of those verses. Actually, there are 7 verses in Deuteronomy that contain the phrase, the name of Yahweh. But these 2 verses, I think, are particularly relevant today. The first one is Deuteronomy 18:22, and it says, "When a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh, if the thing does not come about or come true, that is the thing which Yahweh has not spoken. The prophet has spoken presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him." Now, I think that's a particularly relevant verse today for this reason. I don't think many Christian people would deny that there are events occurring in the world on a daily basis that appear to fall in line directly with Scripture. I believe that myself. When you go beyond that, though, you're asking for trouble. I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen it. People out there who are claiming to know exactly what these events mean, that they know when this will happen or that will happen, and it's as if they're presenting themselves as prophets. That's a dangerous thing to do. The Messiah told us to be on the alert. We should be on the alert. But he told us no one knows the day or the hour. And that's true. None of us know the day or the hour. The only one who knows is Yahweh. Now, if Yahweh tells someone exactly what's going to happen, and that person is in fact a prophet, then that person is not going to present their views as if they are from Yahweh. They will simply say, "This is from Yahweh." And we'll know how to judge that person. Because if what he said will happen or she said will happen doesn't occur exactly the way Yahweh said, then we know that person's not speaking for Yahweh. I taught at the University of Virginia for 25 years. Right now I'm a chaired professor at the University of Virginia, professor emeritus. It was very common for students at the University of Virginia to come into my classroom with lots of opinions. And I taught leadership and strategy, which are discussion-oriented classes. And it was always one of my top priorities every semester to show the students that I really wasn't interested in their opinions. Now, everybody's got opinions. I know that, you know that. But some people's opinions are not based in fact. They're not well-founded. And what I had to show my students was that everyone should have opinions, but those opinions should be based in fact. You should have support for whatever you believe. And if you don't have the support for what you believe, you either ought to change what you believe or you ought to stop talking about it until you've thought it through carefully. Now, that wasn't difficult to get across to my students because the students at the University of Virginia are very smart. But in discussions I have routinely with people on a daily basis who are not particularly well informed, they seem to have the view that if they have an opinion, it's important. The other day I was at a birthday party for my mother-in-law, and there was a person in the room who wanted to engage me in a discussion, and it was about something that I cover extensively in Snyder Talk. Well, I'm not bragging. I'm just going to give you some information. This is factual information. I spend about 80 hours a week going through material to determine what goes in Snyder Talk. And since Snyder Talk covers the entire world, focusing especially on Israel, but it covers the entire world. News items from around the world. It includes the latest and best opinion pieces from around the world. Because I have spent about 80 hours a week for the past 2 years doing Snyder Talk, or almost 2 years, doing Snyder Talk, You would be surprised if I didn't come to the table with a lot to share. Well, this woman came to the table with nothing to share but opinions. And when I questioned her about her opinions, she had no response, and she was offended because she couldn't defend her positions. Well, I have a belief about that. If you don't know enough to engage people in discussion, you ought not engage people in discussion. You ought to just sit there and listen. It's a sad commentary on our times, though, that a lot of people believe that because they have an opinion, the whole world needs to hear it or wants to hear it. I just don't believe that's true. A couple of words about Snyder Talk. If you live in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, any big city in the world for that matter, and you're reading the best newspaper your city offers, in L.A. that would be the L.A. Times, Chicago, the Chicago Tribune, Washington Post. In New York, it's the New York Times. If you live in any major city around the world, you're going to get better information and more information from Snyder Talk than you're going to get from your leading newspaper. And you know why? Because I take the best each of those newspapers has to offer and I incorporate it in Snyder Talk. Now, if you are interested in local news, don't read Snyder Talk for that because it's not there. But if you're interested in world news, and especially what's going on in Israel, there's no better place under the sun to look than Snyder Talk. It's better than the stuff coming out of Israel. Why? Because I take the best stuff coming out of Israel and I incorporate it in Snyder Talk. Those of you who read Snyder Talk know that. The point I'm making is this. I'm informed about these things. When I go out speaking to people about issues that I talk about and read about and discuss all the time, you'd expect me to be an informed provider of information. I'm not trying to suggest that people who don't agree with me should shut up and listen when I speak. I'm simply saying this. When you come to the table for discussion, be prepared. And if you're not prepared, don't share your opinions. My students didn't take, it wasn't hard for them to pick up on that. And it didn't take long before my students expected that from one another. And my classes, because of that, turned out to be excellent classes. And for 25 years, they were excellent classes. Of course, the University of Virginia has very bright students. That was a big help, too. Okay, now the second verse I want to mention briefly is Deuteronomy 28:10. It says, "So all the peoples of the earth will see that you are called by my name, and they will be afraid of you." This is Yahweh speaking to the children of Israel as they're moving toward the promised land. And he says that once they enter the promised land, the people there are going to see that these people coming in are called by the name of Yahweh, and they're going to be afraid of them. It would be true today, too, if people were called by the name of Yahweh. People would be afraid of them. And why? Because we have a protector. His name is Yahweh. Yahweh is not slack. He knows what he's about. He knows exactly what he has to do, and he does it. He's promised to protect us. He's promised to take care of us. You can bet he'll do it. Wouldn't it be great if people who claim to know Yahweh would call themselves by that name? I'm a believer in Yahweh. If you are, you belong to Yahweh's family. If you're not a believer, you don't belong to his family. I think it's time for all of us who do belong to Yahweh to let it be known. Say so. Just say so. I belong to Yahweh. I'm a believer. Who knows what will happen? I do know this. We were told to declare the name Yahweh to the world. That's what we ought to do. And then after we've done that, let Yahweh do his work. I want to thank you again for joining me for this Snyder Talk video commentary. Look forward to seeing you again soon.